Everybody, welcome. We are in a study on lesser known people in the Bible, and today we're going to go to First Samuel in your Bible. So if you can find Joshua, Judges, Ruth, then you'll find First and Second Samuel. First Samuel chapter number 1. Yesterday we talked about two terrible men named Sanballat and Tobiah. Today we're going to talk about two more terrible men named Hophni and Phinehas. So First Samuel chapter number 1, they're only mentioned in 3 chapters of the Bible. They're all in First Samuel, and they're all relatively quick here in the book. Chapter 1, chapter 2, excuse me, and chapter number 4. So we're going to start right off at the top of the book, First Samuel chapter number 1, verse number 1. The Bible says, "Now there was a certain man of Ramoth, Ramathaim Zophim." I didn't do that very well. Let me try again. Ramathaim Zophim. Ramathaim Zophim. I think that's it. Ramathaim Zophim of Mount Ephraim, and his name was Elkanah. I'm glad his name is easier to say than the name of the place he lives. The son of Jeraham. Couldn't get that right either. I'm tongue-tied today. What's happening? Let's start over. Now there was a certain man of Ramathaim Zophim of Mount Ephraim, and his name was Elkanah, the son of Jeroam, the son of Elihu, the son of Tohu, the son of Zuph, an Ephrathite. And he had 2 wives. The name of the one was Hannah, and the name of the other Peninnah. And Peninnah had children, but Hannah had no children. And this man went up out of his city yearly to worship and to sacrifice unto the Lord of hosts in Shiloh. And the 2 sons of Eli, Hophni and Phinehas, the priests of the Lord, were there. So there are a lot of people introduced there at the beginning of this book. Let's go through them quickly. Elkanah and his 2 wives, Peninnah and Hannah, are who we're looking at here. Now, we're going to ignore Peninnah. She has given children to Elkanah, but Hannah hasn't. So all of chapter number 1 deals with Hannah being brokenhearted over not being able to give her husband a son, and so she goes to the temple to pray and ask the Lord's blessing and to give her a son. And of course God honors her prayer, and he gives her a son named Samuel, and that's who 1st and 2nd Samuel are named after. Samuel trains under the high priest Eli here, but notice his sons Hophni and Phinehas. They are also priests of the Lord. And that's all that chapter 1 talks about Hophni and Phinehas. So we're going to jump to chapter number 2, and we're going to go to verse number 32. Okay? Now let's explain what's happening between the 2 times. Hannah goes to the Lord, asks the Lord for a son. While she's praying, she's moving her lips, which is not uncommon. But Eli walks in and sees her praying, and he asks if she's drunk. And she says, "No, sir, I'm just praying." And he tells her that the Lord is going to answer her prayer. And God does. And he gives her a son named Samuel. She had promised the Lord that if God would give her this son, that she would turn him back over to the Lord to serve him all the days of his life. And so she does. She gives birth to Samuel, and once he's older and weaned, she brings him to the temple and turns him over to Eli. So now you've got Eli, the high priest, and he's training Samuel to be a priest. And Eli has his own 2 sons who are priests, Hophni and Phinehas. But God is not pleased with Eli or Hophni or Phinehas. And so in verse 32 of chapter 2, it says, thou shalt see an enemy in my habitation, in all the wealth which God shall give Israel, and there shall not be an old man in thine house forever." And this is God speaking, I'm pretty certain, to Eli here, because he's not been doing right. Verse 33, "And the man of thine, whom I shall cut off from mine altar, shall be to consume thine eyes and to grieve thine heart, and all the increase of thine house shall die in the flower of their age. And this shall be a sign unto thee that shall come upon thy 2 sons, on Hophni and Phinehas. In one day they shall die, both of them." So God tells Eli, he's pronouncing judgment on the 2 sons of Eli, Hophni and Phinehas, that they're both going to die in the same day. And then he says, and I will raise me up a faithful priest, that shall do according to that which is in mine heart and in my mind. And I will build him a sure house, and he shall walk before mine anointed forever. And so already we've read 2 verses about Hophni and Phinehas, and already we see that Eli is going to be judged by God. Hophni and Phinehas are going to be judged by God, and he's going to see that both of them are killed in one day. And then another priest will rise up that will follow the Lord, and this is, of course, Samuel. And he is going to be built a strong house by the Lord, and God's going to bless him because of his faithfulness. Now in chapter number 4, this is the final chapter in which we see Hophni and Phinehas, and we're just going to read down from the start of the chapter through around verse 17. So there's only 5 verses that discuss Hophni and Phinehas. First time they're mentioned by name as priests. The second time they're mentioned by God as those who he's going to kill in a single day. Now we see what happens. 1 Samuel chapter 4. And the word of Samuel came to all Israel. Now Israel went out against the Philistines to battle, and pitched beside Ebenezer, and the Philistines pitched in Aphek. And the Philistines put themselves in array against Israel, and when they joined battle, Israel was smitten before the Philistines, and they slew of the army in the field about 4,000 men. So here the Israelites are battling the Philistine army. The Philistine has gotten the upper hand in this battle. 4,000 Israelites are killed. Verse 3, and when the people were come into the camp, the elders of Israel said, Wherefore hath the Lord smitten us today before the Philistines? Let us fetch the ark of the covenant of the Lord out of Shiloh unto us, that when it cometh among us, it may save us out of the hand of our enemies. So the people sent to Shiloh, that they might bring from thence the ark of the covenant of the Lord of hosts, which dwelleth between the cherubims. And the 2 sons of Eli, Hophni and Phinehas, were there with the ark of the covenant of God. So after the battle is over and Israel's lost 4,000 men, they say, why is God allowing this to happen? We need the ark of the covenant. Now, the Ark of the Covenant was the presence of God, and when the Ark was with the people, God blessed them. And so they send for it out of Shiloh, and they go and get it, and here they find Hophni and Phinehas there with the Ark of the Covenant. And when the Ark of the Covenant of the Lord came into the camp, all Israel shouted with a great shout, so that the earth rang again. And when the Philistines heard the noise of the shout, they said, What meaneth the noise of this great shout in the camp of the Hebrews? And they understood that the ark of the Lord was come into the camp. And the Philistines were afraid, for they said, God is come into the camp. And they said, Woe unto us, for there hath not been such a thing heretofore. Woe unto us, who shall deliver us out of the hand of these mighty gods? These are the gods that smote the Egyptians with all the plagues in the wilderness. Be strong and quit yourselves like men, O ye Philistines, that ye be not servants unto the Hebrews, as they have been to you. Quit yourselves like men and fight. And so after retrieving the Ark of the Covenant, the Israelites shout because their faith is increased and renewed and strengthened, and they know that they're going to go in and they're going to do battle with the help of the Lord this time. And the Philistines hear the shouting and the celebration, and they say, what's all this about? Why are they shouting? And someone deduces they've got the ark. And if they have the ark, that means God is fighting on their behalf. And so they were fearful, but they're being encouraged here. Go out there and fight. Give it all that you've got. And the Philistines fought, verse 10, and Israel was smitten. And they fled every man into his tent, and there was a very great slaughter. For there fell of Israel 30,000 footmen. And the ark of God was taken, and the 2 sons of Eli, Hophni and Phinehas, were slain. And there ran a man of Benjamin out of the army, and came to Shiloh the same day with his clothes rent, and with earth upon his head. And when he came, lo, Eli sat upon a seat by the wayside watching, for his heart trembled for the ark of God. And when the man came out of the city and told it, all the city cried out. And when Eli heard the noise of the crying, he said, What meaneth the noise of this tumult? And the man came in hastily and told Eli. Now Eli was 98 years old, and his eyes were dim that he could not see. And the man said unto Eli, I am he that came out of the army, and I fled today out of the army. And he said, What is there done, my son? And the messenger answered and said, Israel is fled before the Philistines, and there hath been also a great slaughter among the people. And thy 2 sons also, Hophni and Phinehas, are dead, and the ark of God is taken. And it came to pass, when he made mention of the ark of God, that he fell off from the seat backward by the side of the gate, and his neck brake, and he died. For he was an old man and heavy, and he had judged Israel 40 years. And so there we read, in spite of having the Ark of the Covenant with them, they lost the battle. So why did that happen? Well, you can't treat God like a genie in a lamp. You cannot just use him when you think you want him. And that's what they were trying to do here. They were trying to use God to get a victory that they hadn't earned in relationship with God, if you will. And so God allows the Philistines to continue to defeat the Israelites. And in the end, they take the Ark of the Covenant away, the Philistines do. A messenger comes to see Eli. He asks, What's going on? He said, Your sons are dead. The Ark of God is taken. Eli falls out of his chair, breaks his neck, dies. So Eli, Hophni, and Phinehas die in the same day. So what is the problem with the Hophni and Phinehas? Well, let's go to 1 Samuel chapter 2, back into verse number 12. This is the type of men that Hophni and Phinehas were. Now the sons of Eli were sons of Belial. They knew not the Lord. They're priests representing the Lord, but they don't know him. They are sons of Belial, a false god. And the priest's custom with the people was that when any man offered sacrifice, the priest's servant came, while the flesh was in seething, with a flesh hook of 3 teeth in his hand, and he struck it into the pan or kettle or cauldron or pot. All that the flesh hook brought up, the priest took for himself. So they did in Shiloh unto all the Israelites that came thither. Also before they burned the fat, the priest's servant came and said to the man that sacrificed, Give flesh to roast for the priest, but he will not have sodden flesh of thee, but raw. And if any man said unto him, Let them not fail to burn the fat presently, and then take as much as thy soul desireth, then he would answer them, Nay, but thou shalt give it me now, and if not, I will take it by force. Wherefore the sin of the young men was very great before the Lord, for the men abhorred the offering of the Lord. So one of the things that Hophni and Phinehas were doing, when people were offering sacrifices to the Lord, the way the priest was paid was to let the meat be boiled and seethed, and then they would take a 3-pronged hook, a treble hook if you will, put it down into the pot, and whatever it pulled out of the pot, whatever was on the hooks, that went to the priests. And so instead of doing that, they would come to a guy's house and say, Hey, where's the meat for the sacrifice? And they would say, Well, we're preparing it now to boil it in the pot. Hophni and Phinehas would say, Nope, you're not going to boil it. Give it to us as it is. And they would say, Well, no, that's not right. We need to do it the right way. And Hophni and Phinehas would threaten them and say, If you don't give it to us, we will come in and take it by force. And so people gave it up, and then they just stopped offering sacrifices because they were being shaken down by these 2 sons of Eli. Not only that, let's see. Yeah, now verse 22. Now Eli was very old and heard all that his sons did unto Israel, and how they lay with the women that assembled at the door of the tabernacle of the congregation. So now Hophni and Phinehas, they're fornicating with the women that were coming to the temple to worship. And I shouldn't say temple, that's not correct, to the tabernacle. And so what are you kidding me? Never underestimate the sinfulness of man. There is no bottom to which man cannot sink. And here, these priests of the Lord, they don't know the Lord. They're stealing the offering of God from God's people. And then they're sleeping with the women that show up to the church house. It's no wonder that God killed Eli, Hophni, and Phinehas all in the same day, is it? So, what's the takeaway here? Pretty dark story there, isn't it? And we're ending on that note. The takeaway is this: just live right, just do right, just live holy. And let's say, look, if you want to live the life of the wicked, then you should keep that outside of the church. You don't have the right to hold a position in the church, let alone an office, if you want to choose to live in open sin like this. And so God has a way of taking people out. One time someone asked me, there were rumors about an individual, and they said, "Do you believe the rumors?" And I said, honestly, I tend not to. And they said, "Well, why is that?" I said, "Well, number one, I don't have any proof, so why would I side with accusers?" I said, "But secondarily, God has a way of taking care of those who don't deserve to have the positions that they have. And if God wanted that person gone, he could take them out. And he hasn't chosen to do that. And so I'm just going to trust God to do what is right to do. And so why don't us all, as we're members of our local churches, let's be sincere Christians, let's do right, and let's honor the Lord in our behavior. And wickedness such as Eli and Hophni and Phinehas should never cross our minds. And now Eli, he didn't participate in the wickedness, but neither did he put a stop to it either. When he knew what his sons were doing, and in fact, the very next verse, we may as well read it. He said unto them, "Why do ye such things? For I hear of your evil doings by all this people. Nay, my sons, for it is no good report that I hear. Ye make the Lord's people to transgress." Well, yeah, and they're in transgression themselves as priests. So, hey, be ye holy, even as I am holy, said the Lord. God bless you. Have a wonderful day.